Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to be speaking about a few things. We're going to be talking about the true cost of a hair transplant because it's not just money. We're going to go into all those factors. But before I do get into that, and this is a huge question everyone keeps asking me, so I wanted to go ahead and dive in with another video on it. I did do an old video, I'll link in the description for you to check out on the cost of a hair transplant. I talk a little bit about Turkey in it. And I will be doing another video talking about Turkey versus America versus other places to go get a hair transplant to save money. But that's not the whole thing on the cost of a hair transplant. There's a lot more to it than just that. So stay tuned. Do not go away right now. Before I do start that conversation, I will say that I am about to hit my 12-month, and I have Dr. Panine this Friday to go ahead and show it to you. So I'll be showing a really nice bunch of photos showing off my hair in a bunch of different lights for the 1 year mark. Super exciting. And we'll be going over all the details on what we expect for future growth and what we're going to be doing for the third hair transplant, okay? Besides for that, though, which is super exciting for me, we also will probably put that video out on Monday, which would be like the first week of October, okay? So stay tuned for that. Yeah, sorry, I got sidetracked. But the cost of a hair transplant, okay? We're going to go over a few factors. It is money, it is time, it is mental anguish, and there's a lot of factors in each of those, okay? So with time, let's start there. We'll do money last because it's actually a really simple answer, and I can tell you all the different pricing from all over the world and what to expect and what's a dumb idea and what's to be expected, and you'll balance for yourself at the end, all right? But let's start with time because this is the most complicated part of it in my opinion, because people don't actually think about it. One, how much time are you going to spend researching? You should be researching for months before you even go get hair transplant, okay? If you're ever feeling like, oh man, I just gotta go do it, I'm just gonna go do it. I made my mind up. I finally am not afraid anymore. I'm just gonna do it. That's the wrong time to do it. Do not do it then. Do it when you're like, okay, I've talked to 10 doctors or more. I've done a ton of research to find the best 10 doctors I could find through Reddit, through the Hair Transplant Network. They're awesome. Check them out. There's a ton of good info on there. You can see tons of people who post on the forums there, their real results. Of course, there's some doctors, but there's a lot of patients too that post, and they talk about the goods, the bads, and they show their actual results, okay? So first off, do that research. Then schedule a meeting with 10 of the top doctors that you think you found, okay? And make sure that at least 5 of those doctors only do one hair transplant per day, okay? Because you're going to see a difference between the places that have a doctor or technicians that do multiple transplants a day and don't care about you and how they answer questions versus the doctor who does one a day. And again, one a day doesn't guarantee it's a good doctor. It just means that they're 100% focused on you, which is very important, but there are still bad doctors or, unfortunately, I'm going to say it this way. There are a lot of plastic surgeons that do hair transplants on the side in their free time to boost their profit lines, okay? And that is the wrong way to go about this, okay? You should be going to a dedicated doctor, in my opinion. And a lot of people will agree with that. So, number one, the research of that time, okay? That's huge. Do that first and do that to a point of like hundreds of hours of research and make sure you talk to like 3 to 5 people that got transplants from each of those doctors that you like. Speak to the doctors in person if possible for consults. Definitely do video consults for each of them though. If you cannot do in person, I recommend in person if possible, but of course not always possible, right? Now, second thing, once you get the hair transplant, and this is also key, you do have to take about 6 to 12, maybe even 15 hours for a surgery depending on the doctor and how many grafts you're doing. Thousands of grafts takes hours. You talk about a whole day most of the time. Like an average person probably spends like 9 to 14 hours in the chair for the surgery. And you're awake, but also you're usually pretty drugged up on like lorazepam and pain pills, so you don't even notice the time just floating by, which is really nice. Honestly, I could never tell it was 12 hours. I always felt like I just sat down every time I finished, and I've done 2 so far. Now, that's not the hard part. Now, after the surgery, you need 7 days to just sit down and do nothing. Like, don't work out. You cannot work out. You do nothing. You just watch TV, catch up on Netflix, and yeah, literally nothing else. Just whatever you're thinking, nothing. Okay? Super easy. But it's also hard because it's boring. But again, if you take your little chill pills and you just relax and watch some Netflix, it passes by quickly. At the end of 7 days, you're pretty much all healed up. And you got to talk to your doctor, obviously, as I'm not one. But majority of doctors after the 7-day, 10-day checkup, they will say that you can go back to like carefully washing your hair without a spray bottle or without a cup of water. I use a cup of water to gently pour the water onto the hair because you can't have direct pressure in the beginning. But typically, most doctors will say after 10 days, if you're healing properly, that you are actually good to go back to normal showering, which is really key. And that makes it a lot easier. After that, within a week or so, you look normal pretty much. And you cannot get a you cannot get a haircut until 30 days after your transplant. Typically, make sure you check with your doctor on his stats for that. But that's a typical timeline for it is 30 days. Same thing with working out. You should avoid working out for 30 days. And yeah, you just want to basically do the point is you want to keep all your healing agents and be healthy in your body so you can heal the damaged skin and, boost the growth of that hair in the biggest, most critical stage of it. Okay. So sleep a lot, eat well, don't work out, don't touch your head too much, just be careful. Don't get sunburned. Don't wear a tight hat. You know what I mean? Like these are common things. Don't work out. Just keep it chill. All right. Now, that's the first 30 days. After that, it pretty much goes to like normal life for pretty much everyone. It's really easy and you start to not even notice it. Now, the part that's hard with this is the psychological part of day 30, which I will discuss in the next second. But to finish up the timeline on the time cost, you have to wait about 3 months before your hair grows. And then it takes about 9 to 18 months from the time your hair starts growing in, which could be month 2, could be month 4 or 5. Depending on the person, if you're a slow grower or not. So you basically are looking at 12 to 24 month, no matter what, for your hair to get in fully and look great. And I mean like great, meaning like pretty much full results, okay? A lot of people by month 6 after the transplant are very happy and look amazing. I know for me, I was super thrilled on my transplants at about month 6. Especially the first one was crazy for me because I went from no hair to a nice hairline. So that was a huge, huge step up for me. But that is the timeline for the time cost. And this is something that's completely under, valued. Like people always forget about this, okay? And any doctor saying to go get a hair transplant, like a second hair transplant, 5-6 months after the first one is not thinking about your healing and just thinking about maximizing profits, in my opinion. You should be waiting at least 9 months, if not 12 to 18 months to go ahead and get another hair transplant. That's why I wait 12 months every year to get a transplant, because you need the actual skin in the donor area to heal fully before you go, cutting more of it out. Like the skin needs to heal, and so does the hair follicles that you damage, or not damage, but you stress out when you're taking the hair out. You stress the whole area out. You put thousands of holes in. You need to give it time to really fully heal and get back to normal before you're going to start plucking more hair out again, okay? So yeah, that's the time cost, okay? Now, after the time cost, there's the mental cost of the stress, okay? It's a hard decision to get a transplant, but there's something harder. When you get to your first hair put in, it starts to grow and then it starts to fall out about 2 to 6 weeks after it gets implanted, okay? So you start to see this little growth come in, and then you see a massive amount of shedding happen, both from your normal natural hair, if you have any left, and also your hair that got transplanted. And it's because the trauma happens to the hair, and your follicles release the hair and let it fall out. But the root stays, of course, and then it'll start growing back a new hair in 3 to 12 months, okay? And that's why it takes over a year to get full results. But basically, by month 3, you start getting hair growing back in, typically. And again, it can take some people a little longer. Just depends on you, how you're eating, your stress, your sleeping, everything. Okay, there's a ton of different factors, just genetics in general. But basically, month 3, approximately, most people start to see hair growing back in, or 4. And then from there, you see a lot of hair come in within the next 2 months and give a nice little hairline or density to everything. But it does take a full year after that grows in to get to full thickness and diameter of the actual hair. And so super exciting for that, but it's also very hard if you choose the wrong doctor because, month 1 to 3, you have to really realize you're going to look worse than the day you got the transplant. That's a fact. You're going to look worse. So understand you are going to look worse. And I cannot repeat that enough because no matter how much I beat it into you, you will never understand it and you never get over it. It's hard to deal with. And it sucks because you look worse than you did, and that was already a weak point for you. So the good news is after that, once it starts growing back in, you look better every day and you feel better every day for a year, okay? And then you get hair greedy, you want more. But reality is I just want you to be prepared and understand that it's not all sunshine and daisies. And the worst part is this, if you're having a bad hair transplant, or you're having slow growth, or you're not expecting the mental fatigue of not having the look you want after month 2 or 3, and you don't have a doctor you can talk to and call and get reassured by that everything's okay, you're in endless amounts of mental fatigue and stress for months, if not a year or more. And I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. So please do the upfront hours of research and the stress up front, because there's nothing worse than spending a lot of money, even if you only spend 4 grand in Turkey and they don't ever call you or talk to you and they're just like, yeah, you're fine, whatever, it'll grow. You're going to spend what, 5 months freaking out? That's terrible. I could never. That would be the worst case scenario for me. Okay, cool. So we already beat that dead horse to death. Now, moving on to the next cost. This is one that people, always want to know. How much does it cost to get a hair transplant? Okay. It costs everything from like 50 cents a graft to like $10, $20 a graft. Okay, guys, which is crazy. Typically, a really good doctor will charge between $5 to $8 a graft. Some charge 10. I wouldn't pay 10 or more personally. I know some amazing doctors that are, really awesome. And like Dr. Conier, for example, is great in Chicago. He charges $10. I think it's a bit steep. I don't see his results being double as good as someone like Dr. Panine, who charges 6 a graft for FUE and 5 for FUT. And that's who I went to, Dr. Panine, Chicago Hair Transplant Clinic. Dr. Conier is an amazing doctor. I just don't think he's, even a percentage different. I think he's actually quite equal to Dr. Panine's results. I think they're about the same quality of doctor. So for me, it makes no sense to pay the extra money, per graft. And Dr. Panine's someone I really vibed with. So that's another thing you got to realize. You want to choose a doctor that has experience, that shows results, and that you feel comfortable with and you actually have a connection with, because it is a journey and you want to be feeling like you trust the person you're working with, okay? Because it's not like, hey, I'll see you that day and we're done. It's really going to be 1+ years, because most of us having hair transplants, we're not just getting one, guys. That's the reality. A lot of you are going to, need a second or third, and we'll talk about how many you really need in another video. I'll mention this one though, but I'll post it in another video more in depth. But typically, most people go from like anywhere from 1,500 grafts just for like touching up a widow's peak and thickening it up, all the way to, if you're going through a full Norwood 6-7, you need 7,000 to 11,000 grafts to go ahead and get some density and good look, okay? And I say that because it depends on the size of your head. It depends on a lot of factors, okay? But it's a lot of grafts, and most people have between 5,000 and 7,000 total grafts from their donor area. Some people have less, and some people have more. You have people that only have 3,000 donor area, that's safe, and some people that have 11, and that's crazy. But you have to get checked by a doctor to see what your full balding scale looks like it's going to be. You need to look at preventative loss, especially if you're in the early stages. If your family's got like stage Norwood 6 and 7s, full horseshoe baldness everywhere, you want to get on top of it the minute you start seeing, hair loss, because it could save you tens of thousands of dollars, okay? For example, I'm 5,500 grafts in. I need another like 2,000 to 3,000 total to finish my whole head off, okay? So you're looking at 8,000 times, let's say 8,000 grafts, right? If that's the total I get, 8,000 times 6, that's $48,000, okay? Which is a crazy amount of money to pay for hair transplants, and it's really unattainable for most people. But that being said, it's over the course of years, and you can get financing, and there's a bunch of other things you can do, okay? But if you go to a place and you pay only 15 grand for that, but you don't get any results or you look like shit, then, over the course of 3 years, and you have, even worse case, they take too much hair and it leaves like bald patches everywhere, then you're going to have a much worse, scenario that you can't fix. So be careful with how you choose your doctors. Of course, you need to be careful on that. And that's why I always recommend smaller procedures of like 2,000 to 3,000 grafts, not doing mega procedures, because if you only have 5,000, or, let's say you only have 4,000 in your donor that's safe to take, if they go take 4,000 or 5,000 in a single surgery in Turkey for 5 grand, 4 grand, that's awesome. It sounds like you're gonna get your whole head done. But if a lot of it dies or doesn't transplant properly, and you're like, oh shit, I got bald areas, like let's say a portion of your head in the front's bald, and then a random part in the back and it just looks unhealthy, you're going to be desperate to get it fixed. You know what I mean? And then if that's the case, you don't have any more hair to take because it's already over, harvested. So I'm not trying to scare you guys, but I am trying to tell you that this is why research is so key. Please research, over research, get annoyed by how much research. You should be at the point where you're like, yeah, I've been done researching and sick of it for like 2 months. And I still put like an extra 20, 40 hours into research just to make sure I was the right decision. And you should also get to the point where you literally were like, hey, I've talked to 10 doctors or 20 doctors or more, and there are two that are just like neck and neck. Either there's one that's a clear winner, or there's like two that are like, these two or three are way better than the other one, so obviously. And I do think it's also healthy if you start talking to doctors you like one, and then you keep talking to doctors, and then you're like, wow, that guy was actually not as good as I thought. That's healthy too. It means that you learned as you went and figured out who the best one was by collecting more data points as you went. So, guys, just keep that in mind when you're searching for doctors. I know this was a bit extensive, and I did kind of like beat it to death a little bit on the real cost of a hair transplant. But besides for the money, which I know it sounds like the important part because it's a lot of cash up front, you are looking at years of your time, okay? Even if you only get 2 transplants, you're still talking about 2 to 4 years of your time. You know what I mean? And that's a lot. So you do want to make sure you do the upfront work to actually make sure it's perfect and the way you want it to be, and set your expectations realistically. Setting expectations is a major thing. You're never going to have perfect hair. It's about looking good and being happy and feeling confident, okay? In the end of the day, no one really cares if you have hair. They just want you to be confident, right? And I'm not saying no one. Let's say a few percent points of the world's always going to care. You know what I mean? Everyone's always going to think you look a little healthier or better when you have either a clean shave, slick bald look, or, where it's like waxed. That looks great on a lot of people. Or if you have a full head of hair, that looks great. Having spotty hair or, having balding in areas that don't look natural, or, just balding in general with like only hair on the sides and nothing here, that could be less attractive. But at the end of the day, if you're confident, it doesn't matter. If you're happy and confident, good. That's the way it should be. Hair transplants are really for the guys who are having issues with that confidence or need it for business or whatever. Whatever your reason is, it makes you happy. Great. You want to have different styles for your hair besides just a clean bald look, even though you look good with it. That's great. Then get it. And, just make sure you do the research and don't just be like, oh, this is the cheapest option or the closest option to my house. I know a lot of guys that choose places close to their house and regret it badly because they thought, oh, well, it's at least close to the house. Like, no, that's not how you choose a hair transplant doctor, okay? Please, whatever you do not just choose close to home, okay, guys? If you have any questions, though, please go ahead and comment below. Follow me on my Instagram, Hair Transplant Reality, or, message me in the comments. Please like, subscribe, stay tuned for the next video. My 1-year update is coming really soon for my second transplant, and I'm very excited to share it with you guys. And I will be putting out a lot more content like this now that I have 2 years plus of research and personal experience. I can start sharing more. I wanted to wait till I learned way too much so that I actually had more educational stuff to put out for you guys, all right? So stay tuned. I love y'all. Peace.